Last month, more than 6,000 unroadworthy passenger and freight vehicles were taken off South Africa's roads. More than 46,000 fines were issued to public transport and freight drivers. Furthermore, 1,500 public transport and truck drivers were arrested for offences including drunk driving, excessive speed, reckless or negligent driving and overloading. This year, Transport Minister Sibusisa Endebele launched the Decade of Action for Road Safety. With the festive season just around the corner, it's a particularly vital time to ensure best practices are observed by road users. Joining us in studio to discuss the road safety situation with regards to the commercial vehicle sector is Chris Barry, MD of HCV, and Patrick O'Leary, the editor of Fleetwatch Magazine. Gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us here on the show. First of all, one thing that's certainly been bothering me looking at it is trucks in particular. Cars on our roads are almost sort of anonymous. You know, there's just a driver behind the car. But trucks, they've got the branding either of the client or the name of the trucking company all over them, and yet the drivers are still doing stupid things. We've got a situation where, you know, there's a major finance house near my office where the drivers are turning left from the right-hand lane, and yet everybody can see them. So my question there is, we talk about corporate social responsibility projects, charity organisations and all those sort of things. Do we not have a situation where we should have corporate social responsibility for road safety on our roads, Patrick?
I think you're asking, should there be self-regulation rather than just you know, complying to legislation that's in the book? Yes, there is a desperate need for that, because the legislation that is there is probably amongst leading legislation in the world. We have world-class legislation, but it's not being enforced. The transport industry is under tremendous pressure to deliver in the absence of any rail service. Rail has failed South Africa and continues to do so. So they are looking to road. So there's an enormous amount of pressure on the road transporters. And the culture of training seems to have disappeared in South Africa, not only in the transport industry, but in every sector. In our sector, we lack in diesel skills, diesel mechanic skills, so the maintenance of trucks is not being done properly. And driver training, of course, is almost non-existent. Apart from a few of the big companies who are doing it themselves, and there's your self-regulation, there's your corporate responsibility, and the manufacturers themselves are also training, but only their clients, they're not training the new guys. HIV/AIDS decimated the driver ranks in the early days when we were living in an era of denial led by Thabo Mbeki against HIV/AIDS. And that took a long time to get over, and so we lost a lot of truck drivers during that era. We're not losing that many now because antiretrovirals have come in, the stigma has gone and all that. But it did decimate the ranks. New drivers came in, young, inexperienced and untrained.
Okay, but the question there is, I mean, Chris, obviously from, you know, you look at it from an insurance point of view, these loads and the trucks themselves are worth millions. Should the companies not be doing more to actually try and, you know, look after their own cargo?
Substantially. I mean, to emphasise that, we're seeing that companies, either it's a pride aspect. So if the companies have the pride in what they're doing, they're imposing themselves standards. If they don't have that pride, in our opinion, then you're just not going to see the standards. You see the exploitation of drivers, driving hours, the maintenance of the vehicles, as we've seen on the Fleetwatch programs, is substandard for a significant amount of the road fleet in South Africa. So there's no question that it's a significant problem, and it's become a plague.
Now, of course, I mean, I've attended one of your Fleetwatch programs once, Patrick, and it is just frankly shocking and scary to see the state of some of the trucks out there on our roads. And you know, one of the questions is surrounding law enforcement. It's easier to pull a car motorist than it is to pull a truck over. And also there's a lack of knowledge. You know, pulling a motorist over and saying, you know, I think you were doing this, I think you were doing that is fine. Knowing what's wrong with the truck when they try and pull it over is very difficult for the Metro cops, isn't it?
Very difficult, and the training has been lacking there as well. We do the training we've trained over 600 traffic officials. Chris's company is actually a partner of us in Brake and Tyre Watch, one of our valued partners. And we trained over 600 traffic officials, and when we start, we say, who knows what a slack adjuster is? Not one hand goes up in the room of sometimes 100 traffic officials. After the 2 days training and live taking trucks off the road, they're empowered and they want to do their job. There's a lot of good cops out there who really want to do their job. What's very interesting is that we now have permission from the RTMC. We have negotiated with them. We're going to form a national task team of specialised traffic officials who are specialised on trucks. They will get intensive training from us, from our partners, in fact, like Webco, Bridgestone, HCV, etc. And we are going to have a task team non-corrupt, no corruption in that one, eh? And they are going to be squeaky clean, and they're going to be knowledgeable, and so no one can pull the wool over their eyes. And that permission has been given. We're waiting for the final meeting. That will initially start with about 100 police officers, because there's a great deal of lack of knowledge out there. They know how to check a driver's license, the vehicle license, the COF, but go beyond that, they lost. Purely due to lack of training. If I may just emphasize quickly, we also started to say, you're out there on your own, on the road, you see a truck coming towards you. Who among you are comfortable to stop and confident to stop that truck? Identify signs. You haven't got the equipment there, like brake roller testers. Identify signs of unroadworthiness so that you can send it to the test centre. Not one hand goes up. At the end of 2 days, all hands go up.
No, that's fantastic, and we certainly applaud what you are doing. Chris, in terms of the actual, the nature of the law enforcement, yeah, because there's a lot of, and I talk for everybody, you know, regular motorists, truck guys and everything else, yeah, in terms of the law enforcement that's taking place on our roads, who's responsible and why is it not being done?
Well, it's the authorities, and I think the authorities need to really emphasize the compliance. The roadworthy centres, apart from those companies that comply, are by and large a failure. And there's an expectation, certainly amongst insurance, we see an increase where non-roadworthy issues are being claimed as claims. In other words, the fifth wheels that are failing, those are pure maintenance issues. So I think the country needs to look at itself and look at that pride aspect and say, is this a vehicle which is compliant or not? And I think we've got a long way to go to emphasize those points that Patrick made.
Certainly. Patrick, I know, for example, I get probably 3 or 4 updates a day on Facebook from ER24, one of the emergency services companies, and they post photographs on that social networking site, which are, you know, they're quite graphic. I mean, they are of accidents involving trucks and cars. I mean, it's very scary. I mean, really, people should see those pictures every single day. Yeah. But that awareness still doesn't seem to be getting through. And frankly, I have to say that I think companies are just not taking responsibility, are they?
You're absolutely right. They are, you know, the bigger companies are. I'll mention Imperial, cargo carriers, the bigger companies, and some of the small to medium-sized companies. But others aren't. I'll give you one example. We took a truck off one night. So I phoned Chris one night at about 10 o'clock in the evening, and I said, Chris, you got a bumper sticker here. Is this one of your clients? And it was. Chris, I said, well, we're taking it off the road. This guy's a shambles. He shouldn't be near the road. Chris went and said, look, we'd like to come and do an audit of your fleet with a view to helping you improve. He said, no, we're not going to do the audit. Chris, correct me if I'm wrong. We're going to another insurance company. So he's not interested in self-compliant. That guy should be taken off the road. And the MEC, I'd encourage every MEC of transport in this country to read Section 50 of the Act, because a lot of them don't know what's in there. Okay, Section 49 is the duties of an operator, basically around driver and vehicle fitters. Section 50 follows immediately, empowers the MEC to actually take and cancel operators' licenses. And we can give you some companies now whose operators' license could be. It has never been implemented in South Africa. In America, I read just last night on Fleet on a website, a company has been suspended, taken off the road by their legislation for being an habitual, unroadworthy, accident, non-caring
Okay, but Patrick,
transport.
then the question has to work, because it's a whole community thing. Yes. So, for example, when that chap decides he doesn't want to be audited and he tells you and he goes to another insurance company, is there not somebody or some chain that you can report him to, yes, you know, knowing full well that he's got unroadworthy vehicles?
I wish there was, and that's where I use that and emphasize the point that communally we have to look at this and address this as a common stance that unroadworthiness is unacceptable in the entire vehicle park in South Africa. So you can't pick and choose. And I think I'd like to use an example. Patrick, there was a 40-year-old vehicle on one of the brake and tire watch things which sailed through the roadworthy flying colours. That emphasised the point. It's a pride aspect to me.
It is a pride aspect, and it's not there.
Could I add something on this? The insurance industry, I think, has failed dismally.
Absolutely.
I think they are turgid slugs, because what they do is, all they do is they increase the premium when there's a problem. They don't go to the source of the problem, try impact. Like sharing that information, Chris, on that thing. That guy shouldn't be allowed to go to another insurance company. And there should be some kind of communication, which apparently there isn't, is there, Chris? No. Where they can share communication, say that guy is an habitual overloader, transgressor of legislation. Get the MEC in then. Get the MEC, implement Section 50, get him off the road, because he's killing people. There are 15,000 people dying a year. We're not interested in those transport operators. They're unleveling the playing fields. They get cutthroat rates because they don't maintain their vehicle. They don't care, Mark, they don't care. And they are killing people. And they are rolling off those roads every night. every night. And just so the accidents are horrific.
It is a major issue, and I think it's possibly even more than 15,000, but it is a huge financial burden to the state, to the coffers, and of course to you guys with the insurance industry.
I'd like to add to that as well. We need to work in unison with the authorities as well, so not independently. And I agree with Patrick there. We should have commonality at each insurance company faced with the situation of a vehicle fleet like that must be able to be in a position to say, sorry, that's the position, we're not touching you. And I don't believe that exists either, and I agree with Patrick there.
Unfortunately, we have to wrap up there, but Patrick O'Leary and Chris Barry, thank you very much for joining us on the show.